everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. We're at the top of the hour. My name is Justin Kantak. I am the RCA president. I'm looking forward to kicking off our first Chef Cooking at Home series with Steve Schimoler, and it's going to be hosted by Kimberly Schaub. So everybody, good luck. We're excited to see what you got going on, Chef Steve, and we'll let you guys take it away.
And unmute myself and find all the buttons, of course. So I'm really excited for this first in the Cooking at Home with RCA series, and thank you again, Chef Steve, for kicking it off for us. Welcome to all of you to this cool cooking series. My name is Kimberly. I'm a culinary scientist and the host of the Peas on Moss podcast, and that's focused all on the interesting world of food product development. I've been a member of the RCA since 2013, and I'm a really active volunteer thanks to Chef Jeff Kuzminer. He's the one who looped me and so many others into this organization and has engaged so many of us to volunteer. And after several years of restaurant and food product development work, I now work in business development for Griffith Foods. It's my privilege and pleasure to host this cooking series with notable research chefs in our association as a fundraiser to celebrate RCA's 25th anniversary and to help secure its financial future for the next 25 years. So thank you so much for participating in this class and supporting. You can also buy the new cookbook collaboration, Culinology Under Quarantine, and don't forget to pick up some of the brand new RCA member swag, including chef coats and aprons, and lab coats, and other professional wear. And you can also directly contribute to the 25th anniversary campaign on the RCA website, culinology.org. As we begin, I want to start with the land acknowledgement of the indigenous people of the region around Chicago, the headquarters of RCA. We recognize that we are on the ancestral lands of the people, including the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and other Great Lakes nations. We are so firmly rooted in our heritages as food growers, producers, processors, cooks, chefs, product developers, and consumers, and our legacies are really deeply tied to those who came before us. So as we're looking forward to the future, we're really committed to engaging in a way that seeks opportunity, inclusivity, and equity for all. While you're getting settled into this webinar, I want to share some basic Zoom practices. First, you'll notice that your cameras and microphones are off, and this will allow Chef Steve to be the focus of the screen so that we can all see what he's doing. However, we do want to get a chance to answer your questions from you. So when questions arise, please do type them into the chat box, which we'll be monitoring during the entire session. And I'll do my best to enable a dialogue with you and Chef as he demonstrates the recipes. And we are also recording this session, so if you missed something, you can go back and watch that recording. Again, welcome to the first Cooking at Home with RCA cooking fundraising series. I'm excited to get to showcase some of the incredible talent of our organization and celebrate 25 years. So I'll hand off to Chef Steve to introduce himself, but really our next guest does not need any introduction.
Hey, we're live. Well, everyone, this is a real honor to be doing this today. And I want to thank the current RCA board for getting creative. You all know that this is the year with the biggest asterisks we've ever had. It's been a challenge for everybody. This is a new universe in the food world, certainly. It's a new universe in your homes, sitting around the table. A lot of people have been cooking for the first time in their lives. Many of you have now had a chance to kind of, fine-tune your skills. It has been an incredibly tough year for the RCA. As you know, everything was canceled. Every event was canceled. The meat and potatoes every year has been the conference. And without that, we had an incredible shortfall of about $250,000. Interestingly, it's these increments of 25. We're celebrating 25 years, guys, 25 years of an organization that started when the ACF said, you guys are full of it, forget about it. A bunch of us said, no, we're going to do our own thing, and thus the RCA was born 25 years ago. So much has happened in 25 years. We could reminisce all day long, but this year we need to get creative on how we can support the future of the RCA. And I know everyone is bound to determine chefs and scientists in this group are the toughest anywhere in the world, and we're going to fight for the RCA. So today was the first little kickoff. For a mere $25, you get to spend an hour with me. Hopefully you remember me. New people on board. Great to introduce myself to you. I'm really excited to do this. Great time for doing a comfort food meal. We all need comfort. Thanksgiving coming up next week. This is a unique challenge. Interestingly, when I agreed to do this over a month ago, I said I'm going to make it for a smaller portion because I was concerned that we would have restrictions on how we could entertain on Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, those have become true. Nonetheless, what you're going to see today is my version of kind of a a la minute, if you will, a smaller portion thing, smaller turkey, serves 4 to 6. You'll still have something left over, hopefully, for a sandwich the next day. But I wanted to, I'm not wearing a chef coat today because I am at home, but I found this and I wanted to show this. This was given to me in my outgoing board meeting as president in Montreal. It's signed by some fantastic people. I want to call out Michelle Block and Pops Hani, who are no longer with us, but were huge, huge influencers to how the RCA got started. And the Block family and Dairy Fair have been the most religious, dedicated sponsors since we started. So I got a glass of wine. It is 5 o'clock somewhere, at least here in Gates Mills, Ohio. And I want to say cheers to everyone. Let's have a great time cooking. So what we're going to do is, this is real time. And having all these years in the restaurant business, you learn how to get prepared, have your mise en place ready. It's all about timing. It's all about rhythm in the kitchen. We can make music with great rhythm. So cheers, here we go. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to go into I have a little lab test kitchen in here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to make the cornbread recipe, which we're going to bake off. We're going to do everything as it is. The only thing I've done is I did pre-grill my turkey, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But this cornbread started at a restaurant in Long Island called the Black Walnut, which we opened in 1985. It quickly became one of the hottest places. We were one of 10 three-star restaurants in New York, Long Island at the time. And our cornbread, I always loved cornbread, and we did a dish that was a chicken dish, which was a chicken breast stuffed with a cornbread and pecan stuffing. So this is still hasn't changed. Cornmeal, that was 1 cup. You're reading along and doing this. Cup of cornmeal, cup of all-purpose flour. I've got the baking powder, the salt, and the baking soda pre-measured. Get that in there. Just get, this is brown sugar. Get your dries mixed in there. I want to sift it. The thing with cornbread, I find you don't want to over mix it. Now, I've owned a bakery for 6 years called Loafers in Long Island, and we had everything from scratch. Unbelievable sourdough, baguettes, everything made from scratch. It was truly a labor of love. I regretted getting calls at 3 in the morning from the opening baker saying that they couldn't make it in, because that meant I had to get in my car after getting home from the restaurant only 3-4 hours ahead and go in and open the bakery. So it's a love-hate thing, but very simple. Just get that mixed up. 2 whole eggs. This is a cup of buttermilk. You can use regular milk if you like. I find the buttermilk really does bring this to life. It's got a little acidity working on it. So we're just going to continue to get this into solution, if you will. I don't, again, want to overmix it. I've got one thing here. This is half a cup of melted butter that's just cooled down a little bit. So now you can see we've got some fat working there. We're getting everything blended. And again, I don't want to over blend it. We do want to kind of keep some solids in there, if you will. Over blending it, I think, just flattens the batter. And that looks perfect to me. So now I've got, whoops, going right into a oven-proof casserole or baking pan, whatever you want to call it. It's about a 9 by 12. See, this is going to be turned into croutons, which you'll see as we get into it. And this is ready for the oven. So basically, just get it leveled out. You'll see when this comes up, it's going to rise nicely. So this is going to bed for about 12 to 15 minutes. I'm lucky I have a nice little rig here. This does have a convection feature. I'm running it to 350 degrees. We'll keep an eye on that. So while we're baking, we're going to come in here again. And we're going to get the stuffing going. So the stuffing, this is pretty darn good. I've got this. Kirsten, actually, would you hand me the butter that's on that shelf, on that pan there?
Jeff, please. We have a question for you. You mentioned
Yep.
sourdough from your bakery. It seems almost everyone made sourdough during the pandemic. What other breads should we try and bake?
Go to brioche right away. And I will do. I was kind of maybe a little snarky on some Facebook posts about people posting pictures of their sourdough when they probably should have waited until they got it better looking. But I applaud everybody who made their efforts on getting sourdough and different breads going. While that's going, the one thing that I do use, the microwave comes in handy for melting butter. Julia Child was so funny. Someone asked her if she used a microwave, or she had a microwave. She says, "Of course I have a microwave. It's perfect for drying up the Sunday New York Times if it's wet from the rain." Very true story. Anyhow, while that butter is melting over there, we're going to get the stuffing mixed together here. So I know you all did your mise en place and you have everything measured out. And see, I've got these different, celery cut, onion cut, walnuts or pecans, I'm sorry, just crushed. But size of cut matters here. Size does matter. This is all going to be blended into the stuffing. So I'm not worried about the exact brunoise or dice size. If I was in a culinary competition and they take out the measurement and saying, "Oh, yours is a little over half by half," forget it. Don't need to be perfect on that. So these are very fun. I collected Illy cups, Illy Cafe espresso cups. Each year they did a season. This is a very special one. This is a David Byrne series. Of course, David Byrne would do the aliens. So, but I do like them because they're great for using little measurements. Since I don't own a very expensive espresso machine, which I need to get on my Christmas list this year, I'm using them for little portion cups. So about 2 ounces almost. 2 ounces is what I think I put on the recipe. Enough to get a good coating on the pan. Again, this is a nice steel French Mauviel pan, one of my favorite pans. We have these in the restaurant. They are nothing better than these pans. It's the workhorse of the culinary world. They haven't changed making this for the last several hundred years. So we're going to start out, get the onions going.
I think sizzling onions are my favorite sound.
Layers.
Mm-hmm.
Onion is one of the things that I used to demonstrate as when we were doing culinary demonstrations at ACF meetings, at the conferences at RCA, or when I was speaking to young culinary students. To me, the most important thing that helped me as a chef was a memory bank of flavors. And you taste the raw onion. That's the definitive flavor of a raw onion. However, there's how many different types of onion? A sweet Vidalia, a red onion, a Spanish onion, yellow. They all have a little bit of different nuance to it, but tasting that and getting the point of reference for what an onion tastes like raw, then the iterations of time and temperature. We did a demonstration at an ACF conference where I presented what I call distractionary flavors. And one of the things we did was I took onion, and this is when I was still at Nestle, and we were doing a lot of R&D on this kind of level of how to really develop flavors. And I was able to take onion, cooking them super slow to a full caramelization, and we're able to turn it into what looked like little craft caramels. Anyone who was at this workshop that time, these chefs were kind of freaked out because they couldn't tell what it was, and it was onion, but it tasted and had almost the texture of the caramel. So memory bank, flavor memory bank is so key. So now got those onions looking good. Got my celery going. Again, timing in the kitchen. So this stuffing, I would suggest making it a day ahead, even 2 days ahead. You could make it on this weekend, pop it into your freezer, because it really holds up great. And it's the type of thing, to me, Thanksgiving, as a chef who owned restaurants, it was painful as hell to have to cook Thanksgiving dinner. All I wanted to do was lay on the couch and watch some football and have someone else cook. That never worked that way. I always ended up getting roped into doing the dinner. So you learn how to make things easier. And, you know, getting things prepared ahead of time takes the stress out. It allows you to be the host with the most. It allows you to have fun looking like you're really organized, because you are. And take the time. It's therapeutic to be able to take the time and then have all these things come together a la minute. So those are almost there. So what I'm going to do is take my apples now. I've kept them whole until this, but this is 12 ounces measured out. And going with a pretty good sized dice on this. I think I wrote like 3/4 inch cut. But we want these chunks to really come through nice and still have some crunch in it in the stuffing. However, you also want to have them small enough so you get enough even distribution, so you've got uniformity throughout the stuffing, that you're going to get an apple in almost every bite. We don't want anyone to get cheated on that.
Chef, why didn't you use like a Granny Smith or something that's pretty tart?
You know, I grew up on Long Island, and we had 12 apple trees. We had Cortland's, McIntosh, and Baldwin. And the Baldwin you can't find anywhere. I've tried to find it, but that was really an heirloom apple. I like the kind of tartness. This is a Honey Crisp. I didn't get the Cortland or Mac. I would do this. My first choice would be a McIntosh. I do use Apple products. I have an iPhone too, so I figured, okay. All right, so
meta.
I'm just starting to get some browning on the edges. This is still going to be going for a little while, but I still want to have that crunch. One of the things I find about stuffings that just get ruined is, you know, we used to pack the cavity of the turkey with the bird, which really, in the end of the day, was probably responsible for some foodborne illness. And it also overcooks, and you have these, you know, you're pulling out like a brick of stuffing. Or it gets overworked and overhydrated, and then it's like mush. I don't like mush for my stuffing. Plus, you'll see that how much is going in here of the liquids, and it's not as much as you would probably expect. Jeff Poosminer actually asked me if there was a typo or if I needed more. I said, no, that's correct, because I don't want it to be soggy, because you want to be able to have stuffing that can hold up to some gravy. We love our gravy, we love our sauce, and putting sauce on something mushy, it's mushy on mushy. So the integrity of the cut, the size of the cut, how long we cook things, that's the science part of optimizing how each ingredient is handled. So I started with the onions. They take more time to get some of the flavor and cooked out, and some of that sulfuriness gone. Celery, a little bit less that we wanted, and then of course the apples we want really fresh at the end.
We had another question come in and ask.
All right, so now.
We had another question come in about whether a pink lady apple was going to work the way a Macintosh would.
Pink lady.
A pink lady? Sure. You know, any apple's going to work. What I don't like is some of the delicious. They're too fibrous, and you can see that the cell structure is larger, and they can be a little grainy. When you look at a Cortland or a Macintosh, it's a very tight structure. And I find that those hold up better. So we don't want to cook this too much longer, as I said. So now, this is my sage, fresh sage. I'm very lucky. I got a gorgeous herb garden out on the deck that's done unbelievable. I picked this just about 2 hours ago. Another super cool David Byrne cup. Aliens. Okay. Now this is my stock, turkey stock, and apple cider already blended, so this is 2 cups. There we go.
What kind of cider do you like to use for this?
Whatever you can get. No, fresh cider, there's this, again, I grew up on this great place in Long Island that we had all these apples, and one of the oldest cider mills in the country, dating back to 1780, I think it was, the Jericho Cider Mill. We would bring our apples down. My father, a veterinarian, took care of their dogs, so we would get to go down there on a Sunday with buckets and garbage cans of apples, and they would make cider for us. So we bring home all these gallons of just fresh, pure cider. That, to me, was the definitive. What we found out is that those gallons that weren't in the refrigerator the whole time and fermented, well, we were drinking those, I think getting a little buzz until my mother figured that out, and then we didn't get the fermented cider anymore.
Nice.
All right, so this is looking real good right now. So I'm gonna hit my salt. I think, what did I tell you to put in there? A teaspoon? Yep, teaspoon. I've measured so many times. That was exactly a teaspoon right there.
Yes, Chef.
Fresh cracked pepper, about a half a teaspoon. Figured that's around, depending on your pepper mill, about 15 turns. I had my gram scale out. We could challenge Steve's measuring and guesstimates. All right, so that looks perfect right there.
So a question for you, Chef. If you can't find apple cider, will apple juice work as a substitute?
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Yeah, and again, cider is completely like wine. It depends what type of apple was pressed. You know, with the difference between a tart Mac or a Cortland versus a super sweet Honeycrisp or a high sugar Granny or Red Delicious. That looks just about right there.
How's it smell?
Oh, the smellometer is going way off the charts right now. It really is. This is, again, to me, the thing about, it's funny, I would be in the kitchen, in the prep kitchen downstairs at Crop, and I hear things, and I could hear something on the stove boiling, and it gets tighter. I go, that sauce is ready. The difference of a rolling big water boil until you look at something like a demi-glace that gets down to syrup and there's not much water left. And that's a different sound when it's bubbling versus a pot of boiling water. All right, we're done. So here I've got my croutons, which I made yesterday. And you're gonna see what we pull out here, which got a little ways to go on that. That cornbread, I'll show you how to make the croutons. So this is the cornbread croutons. See, they're very crunchy. I've had to hide them because Kirsten was stealing them and nibbling on them. So here we go.
Wow.
Right into the croutons. It does smell so good. So now this is butter. That's your half a cup of butter.
That looks incredible.
It works real well. So the last thing that's going in there, because I don't want them to get cooked, is the pecans. And again, just fold this together. You don't want to smash it up. But again, make this a day, 2 days, 4 days ahead of time. Put it in your freezer. Even refrigerated, 2 days is fine. But you can see that all that moisture is gone. There was only 1 cup. And that, my friends, is ready to go. Take a little nap in the oven. Goes right into an oven-proof casserole dish.
Chef, it turns out you have a couple of people cooking along with you, so I'm wondering how they're
Oh, great.
doing. Yeah. If y'all
how's
who are
it going
cooking
out
along
there?
want to turn on your cameras and share, I'll put you in a gallery view so you can all show off your skills. Let us know if you want to. I'll look for your little camera to pop up. So Chef,
All right,
earlier
so
you were mentioning kind of that, oh yeah, that looks amazing.
Going right in the oven.
Same temp as for the cornbread?
Yep, 350 is our friend.
All right.
Okay, the cornbread that's in there looks like got about another 4 or 5 minutes on that. All right, so now, again, timing. So if I was really doing this and I had people showing up at 6 o'clock for dinner, like at the restaurant, here's the first course is dropping at 6 o'clock, everything's gonna be ready to pull out a la minute, if you will. So what we're gonna do now is gonna attack the turkey. So we're gonna go into the other room here. So here's what we want to do first is we're going to get the brine started, because as soon as I take the turkey apart, it's going right into the brine, and that's going to go to bed for 24 hours in a refrigerator. We can talk about other options for that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've got a quart of water and a quart of cider. I'm going to add enough water, probably that was 2 cups. And in goes the sugar and the brown sugar. That was a cup of each, pre-measured. It's going to go right in there. I'm going to go back to the stove. Now you could do this ahead. But basically all I'm doing is I want to get this so the sugar's melted and the salt is put into solution. It's only going to take about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. It helps when you have a 17,000 BTU burner. And again, you all know it's not your first rodeo. Time and temperature is dependent on so many variables. When I wrote my cookbook, the Miss Grill cookbook, you know, I made it very clear to everyone that you have to know your oven. You have to know where the hot spots are. You have to know how quickly you can get something boiling, how many BTUs you have, whether it's a old school enamel or whatever they called those things. I could never cook on it. The plastic that lights up red. You turn it off and it's still boiling for like 10 minutes. But electric versus gas, you know, there's differences. And the difference of volume. So if I put all that, if I put the 2 cups in there and the two cups of the sugar and the salt, it's going to take a little longer to get that up to temperature because this is more surface area down here. And
yeah, I think that highlights kind of the skills that you develop as a culinary professional, as a chef, that translates so well in product development and food science work is that knowledge, right? Is the experiential piece that you've gone through, coupled with the food science knowledge that you gain through culinology.
well, and that's the thing, you know, it's practice and repetition. And, you know, when we would do a new menu, and I would do a new menu, at one point it was every month, and that went then to every quarter. But when you do a new menu, and I play drums, a lot of you know that I've been playing drums my whole life, and I would keep a shaker, these little, got it right here. I had shakers in the kitchen, and on a Saturday night, we'd have 200 in the dining room where we're just going perfect, it's really running. And the minute I sense a little bit dragging, the guy in the grill's having a little problem. He's behind. 2 well-done steaks threw off the timing. And I could see that the dance got a little off. And I'd get my shaker, and the kitchen would all turn around and look, oh, and they go, oh, back in the groove. So when we would do a new menu, I'd say every menu was like a set list in our band. Every song had its different melodies, rhythm, obviously, harmonies, and each dish has those same elements. All those flavors come together. But the difference is, in the kitchen, we'd have 5 or 6 guys playing 20 songs at the same time, because all the things on the menu, versus on a band, we're on the stage where 5 and 6 guys, we're playing the one song at the same time. So repetition is so key, and it would take a while. It would take, you know, 2-3 days on a new menu before everyone really felt the rhythm on it. So we're gonna throw this turkey together. For that brine, here's the rest of the cider. Here's the rest of the water. There's my 1/4 cup of rough chop, kind of minced ginger, fresh ginger. My cinnamon. So this, I've been working on a project, really fun project, for doing a chai tea concentrate. I think Charles is out watching this tonight, out in Denver. But we've been working on this for the last 6 months, commercializing a chai tea concentrate for food service, a big coffee chain. This is secret, so I can't go too deep. But this brine could go right into that chai category. All I need to do is I could have added some fennel to it. I could have added some anise to it, some clove, cardamom, and this could be a chai brine. So your chai turkey brine could be something. So this is where the brine, as long as the most important thing is you're getting the salt and the sugar correct for the proportion. This is a gallon of liquid. 1 cup of each of the salt and the sugar is going to get your brine. Even if it was just water, sugar, and salt, as a minimum, that was what would take. Obviously, the more you do to this, the more it's going to add value. And again, what are the flavors that you want to have at the end of the day? So then I got some fresh rosemary sprigs in there. Smash. So turkey. This is a 10 to 12 pound turkey. Over the years, I found I like doing this because you can cook the things separately. It cooks beautifully, easily. You're not putting a 20-pound monster into the oven that might not fit. And you're not cooking something for 6 hours all day long. Smells great, but 99% of the turkeys I've had, I hate to insult people who went to the houses, but they were dry as hell. So what we do here, very simple. You can have your butcher, if you're not comfortable, or have someone take this apart for you. but we're gonna quarter it. So you basically, leg and thigh, come right down here, and you just know where the anatomy of these things are. My father, a veterinarian, I like to say I learned my knife skills literally helping him do surgery. So I had very incredible knife skills, but I go right into the joint. There we go. Go to the other side. And the same thing. Find that joint. Crack, crack.
Just satisfying sound, isn't it?
Yeah. Come on, Tuffy. Say again on that side. There we go. And goes into the brine. So now, taking the breast, here's that little part of that bone there, that cartilage. So the knife does the work here. And don't go deep. You go in layers. And just take that down and peel as you go. You see, as I'm peeling that, my knife is against the cartilage, not into the meat. Come down, you're gonna find the little bone right here. So what you do then is find the outside of the bone and run right up that. See that right there? The beautiful thing about doing this prep too, doing this ahead of time, it allows me to take the carcass, and I did this last night on the turkey that I've already got cooked ready for today, and I was able to put the carcass in the oven by itself, carrots, celery, and onions, and I pre-roasted it for about 30 minutes till it got nice and brown, a little crispy. That went into the stock pot, water, salt, some herbs, and then I make my stock to have my gravy. So here is the breast. Take the wing off. I already took the pin off, the feather pin. So now what I do is just really lightly, like a jacquard would be, jacquarding, needling it, just get some holes into that breast side of the meat, and it goes. Come back, we take number 2. But it is really nice having that stock, because then you can pay attention to the stock and how deeply you want to reduce it. I mean, you could literally turn it to a jelly, taking it all the way down. You're kind of deeper than demi. Got that right there. Let the knife do the work. As I keep saying, timing's everything. And I know that I got to take a look at my cornbread. There we go, breast number 2. Go right into the joint. And it goes, light jacquard. And this now goes to bed for a full 24 hours. Keep it in a refrigerator, keep it in your cold garage if it's cold enough, but keep it at refrigerated temperature for 24 hours. When you're ready to get to the grill, so this is what I recommend to make your Thanksgiving very easy, is that you've got your brine turkey ready, get it out in the morning, a couple hours at least before you're gonna cook. And what you do is drain it, just rinse it very lightly, get a little of that salt coating off there, dry it, pat it dry, a little bit of oil on it, and it goes onto the grill. So smell cornbread. Perfect. And my stuffing, oh yeah, we're gonna be liking that. All right, so the turkey, you get it when you're ready to grill it. Now, you could do this and take it off the grill and serve it immediately. However, giving yourself some wiggle room as the day goes and someone's late, someone's calling, they're not there for another 20 minutes and things get delayed. Well, here's what you do. So I grilled this about 2 o'clock today. And you can see nicely grilled, the skin is crisped up. This took about a total of 20-25 minutes. On a medium grill, I keep the lid up and down, closing it, but the goal is you want to get an internal temperature about 145 to 150, 160 max. And I kept my very trusty probe, continue to check that. One of the nice things about it, if you know with turkey, is you put a whole bird in the oven, the thighs and the legs take longer. They might have a little pink in them that you don't want. The breasts are then overcooked. So this method allows you to individually cook the components to optimize its texture. So what I'm going to do now is I'm ready to serve dinner in about, I'll call it 15 minutes. So 350-degree oven, in it goes. We're going to finish that off. It's going to be about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You can crank up the oven a little bit right now if you want to, which I'm going to do. Give it a little more horsepower. All right, so now, this is what I did yesterday with my croutons. Now, I would normally let this cool a little bit longer, but for our purposes, right in the pan, doesn't have to be so exact, but call it 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch cuts. And again, this is a trick. Instead of having to wait and flip it out and then cut it and clean up something else, it's all in the same pan. And the one thing that I kind of make a deal with, if I am cooking for people on Thanksgiving, I do not do any dishes or pots, period. But I try to be considerate of everyone. So I used an aluminum disposable pan for my turkey. Great. Don't need to use anything else at the end of the night. Do you need to wash it? You can if you want to, but most likely it's going to get rolled up and thrown out and not have to use up your dishwasher or some labor at the dish tank. So free up the edges like that. Now we'll see how these come out right now. There we go. See, it's still too hot. We got to let this cool, but you're going to get the idea. So let this cool about another, 15 minutes. But when you dump it out, all those croutons are going to come out like this. And then what you do is spread those out across your sheet pan. And these go in the oven for 2 hours at 200 degrees. They come out perfectly. They're just nice and crunchy. They hold their crunch even in the stuffing. And I approve.
Well, there you go then.
So this is hot, hot, hot.
Man, I wish you could just hand that pan over to me. I would take care of it.
All right, so the last thing we're going to do, and this is something that you could do a la minute, is the sauce.
Chef, before we move on from the turkey portions that you had cut and grilled, did you flip over your turkey grilled portions, or did you grill just on one side and finish in the oven?
No, start on the skin side down
Mm-hmm.
and get to where you're really comfortable with the skin. And again, people make the mistake of moving shit around on the grill. Don't move the stuff.
Yep.
Get it down, monitor it. You can mark it. If you want to get a crosshatch, move it 45 degrees, but leave it down. Don't mess with it. Peak, you can cook it up. You don't want to move it too early because that's when the skin sticks to the grill. You do want to start off, make sure your grill is preheated. Again, I go medium because if you're too high, it'll burn the skin. But you get the skin side down. As soon as you're happy with how that skin looks, flip it over, finish that side, check your temperatures, and that's it.
Thank you.
So, as an alternative to the standard turkey gravy, this is a sauce that I've been playing around with for a couple of years, and it actually came together the other night when I was playing around it, or last week. But this is a shallots. This is oil, just strained vegetable oil, straight. Oh, there's another David Byrne alien. They work great for these things. So, get my oil nice and hot. And I've got some shallots that are going to go in as soon as the oil's hot. So this is kind of a little backstory. This is cornstarch. By the way, before I forget, I show in the recipe to use 4 tablespoons. You can go down to 3. I made this and then refrigerated it, and it got a little too thick after it was refrigerated. It looked perfect in the pan at that temperature of a simmer. But if you're going to make this sauce ahead of time, which you certainly can do, make this a day or 2 ahead of time, at least, if you want to, and go down to 3 tablespoons. So that's what I did today. I used 3 tablespoons instead of 4. But I'll never forget, one of my first real forays into the kitchen, and what got me interested in cooking, I was in the 2nd grade, and I had a hernia operation. And they let me go back to school too early. I hurt myself. I had to stay home for like 10 days. So this is, and I'm dating myself now, but this is probably 1968, something like that, 67. And one of the 3 channels we got on the black and white TV was PBS, which you could watch Julia Child and you could watch Graham Kerr. And I immediately thought Graham Kerr was the coolest thing. He was fun, he was animated, he drank wine. Not that I was old enough to drink wine, but it looked cool. But, so I would sit and I'd watch the show. And if I liked what I saw, I wrote down the recipe on an index card, and my mother would go and buy the stuff at 3:30 when the show was over, and then I would make it for dinner. So he made a Charlotte Russe. If you've ever heard of Charlotte Russe, it's almost like a trifle, layered with fruit, but it has toasted buttered bread that lines the side of the so it's molded with this butter toasted bread. Very luxurious. But it called for the fruits to be cooked and thickened. Well, we didn't know what to do, but my mother went right to the pantry, got cornstarch. She made a little slurry. See, that's hot. Now you know. I want this really hot for a reason, because these shallots are going to get some kind of sugar treatment to it. But anyhow, back to my mother. So she made this slurry, and we had the strawberries, and we're cooking the strawberries, and it's just watery. And she then whipped in this little bit of cornstarch, and I was amazed by it, and I was so smitten by this, and that kept me in the kitchen. We did have 6 kids growing up. My mother was a very good cook, the ultimate in comfort foods, and she fed an army of athletes every day. But that starch, make a little slurry. It's just the starch in the water.
I love those stories about the TV show or the chef that got us hooked into the kitchen and really kind of carry us through our chef identities through restaurants and then into product development. I mean, that's so powerful. The Graham Care is also who I credit.
Real quick, see the onions? They're kind of like all crispy and fried already.
Yeah.
Maple syrup. I lived in Vermont for 12, 13 years. My daughter Kirsten grew up there as well. We know our maple syrup. For cooking, I like to use bee syrup, really dark. It's way less money, and in my opinion, it has way more depth of flavor. So we're gonna let that maple start to boil up, and you can see these shallots, and they're gonna be suspended in this little sugar bath. Now, the other thing with starch, and this goes to a really culinology thing, for the millions and millions of gallons of sauces and products that I've produced over the years, you look at how the starch works and when it works. So one of the things we did, if anyone remembers Warren LaRuth, he was a super famous chef out of New Orleans, and I got to work with Warren a couple years doing R&D, and he had an unbelievable test kitchen, gorgeous lab in Pass Christian, Louisiana. And I'd spend days with Warren, and one of the things that we did as a challenge was to replicate super aged balsamic syrup, like 75-year-old balsamic that's syrupy, like Saba texture. And what we did is we played around with using cheap balsamic out of a jug balsamic, using then brown sugar, a little bit of salt. We'll tell everyone what was in there, but what we did, we were able to get the flavor just where we thought that it was the definitive flavor of super aged balsamic, but it didn't have the viscosity. So the only way to get the viscosity would be to reduce down to a syrup level, but that also concentrates all the other flavors that you were working on. So what we would do is we'd get that balsamic and sugar and the concoction to the right taste. Then we would add the starch. At the time, National was a huge supporter of the RCA and still is under Ingredion, I'm sure. But we had an inventory of starches, and they all perform somewhat differently. A modified waxy maize, potato starch, wheat and corn blend, tapioca, and they all had some different functionality, but we were able to create this balsamic syrup that we could have put in a bottle that was very precious with a year label on it that said 75 years old, and people would believe that it was 75-year-old balsamic. Magic of starch, but what I like about it is you can capture the flavor exactly where you want it, even if it's in a 250 or 300-gallon kettle, and capture that flavor at the right moment and then stabilize the flavor. And I work that way with everything I do with sauces, unless the process requires it to be naturally reduced, and that flavor is developed from that reduction process, then do that. But you know, if you're working in a plant with 1,000-gallon kettles, you're probably not going to be waiting around for 5 hours till it's reduced. Plus, your ops people in the accounting department is going to go, let's find him another job. So this is balsamic. It's not balsamic syrup. This is just straight jug balsamic. It's good for the purpose that I want here. I See, a little bit of color comes out of that. Obviously, it's now darker. Some salt. What did I say that needed? What, a half a teaspoon, I believe? And again, this is to taste if you want. Your palate is, everyone is different. And if you're looking for a little more salt, then go ahead and add a little more salt. You can always add, you can't take out. It's a big mistake. You work by adding levels. It can't remove something once it's in there. Otherwise, you're then tasked with trying to mask it, which then creates a real problem. So we're going to let that come to a boil. This is fresh sage, straight fresh sage, heaping tablespoon, and the rosemary. A teaspoon of each, I'm sorry, on those.
How's it taste for those of us who are stuck on
So
camera?
it's so simple. I mean, it really is just so simple. You have the maple. It gives it that roundness on the palate. It kind of has a silkiness to it because of that maple texture. The little chunks of shallot, which will get suspended once we starch this. And then the cider. So cider is something that has great flavor as a drinkable, as straight cider. And I want to maintain that light freshness to it. So we don't have to overcook this. As soon as that comes up to a boil, I'm going to start adding my starch. But in the meantime, it's time to get ready for dinner. So what we're going to do, get our plates here. And again, this next week, a week from today, you know, these mandates, it's really very, very sad that we're in this state where we can't just have people over like we would normally do and share the table. But now it's, you know, precaution is obviously the word of the day. I feel so bad for my friends who still are in the restaurant business. I thank God every day that I don't own a restaurant anymore. I left the business 4 years ago and moved to Italy for 1.5 years and cooked some of the best food I ever did in my life. It was therapeutic. It was like my own French laundry on this 800-year-old villa. I got to use a 500-year-old wood oven. That was the most amazing thing to cook in. Had a group there for Thanksgiving. They were all from New York, 20 people. So I did a kind of traditional American Thanksgiving, but with some real Tuscan flair to it. But I cooked the entire meal was in the wood oven, and it felt so kind of primal. You know, I started scratching and grunting a little bit. All right, so there we go.
So let's get a zoom in on that sauce.
So as soon as this is boiling, which we're just getting there now, see, we're getting there. So I already know that this combination of this recipe, how much cider, how much maple, the shallots, a little bit of salt, pepper, and the sage, very, very simple, but that's where I want it. So now, the magic of science, we're going to use this very simple cornstarch off the shelf. Sure, all of you have libraries of some sort, spice libraries and gums and starches and resins and all that good stuff. And don't hesitate to take something out of your lab and play around with it, but you get my point with how to make this sauce. So now I'm going to knock that down, and in goes
You know, you should see the comments, Chef, on the sauce and the way you're describing this. You'll have to go back and look at the chats later.
See, so you see, you're gonna let that starch cook up a little bit. probably about a minute. Let it go so it starts to work its magic. So we had some fat with the vegetable oil in there. You had the sugar, maple syrup. You had the cider, and then the savories, the salt, pepper, and the herb. And so that starch is emulsifying. It's pulling all of those things together into a homogeneous phase. So one of the tests I always do is, how does it run? Yeah. So on my Bostrick meter, that's a 5.1. So now we are ready to eat.
And back to the basics, just like that too.
So when I reheated the turkey, all I did is I add some water in the bottom, okay? If you want a little bit of that, just a little bit. If you have your turkey stock, you can also sneak that into it. Now, the last thing is this. I love mustards. I'm kind of a mustard geek, but I discovered this just 2 months ago, and it's real good. So coarse grain, 2 tablespoons at the very end. Got it on low. Just blend that mustard in. You don't want to cook mustard. Cooking mustard too deeply can really get some bitter off flavors. And this coarse grain, this has a little bit of sweetness to it, but it's really, really good. You can use anything. One of my favorite is like Pomeray, the coarse grain from Pomeray. But whatever you can find, the coarse grain mustard's going to go a little bit, goes a long way. All right, shutting off my sauce. Time for a little red wine. I think I deserve it.
Tell us about that wine. What do you have?
That's a Primitivo. Zinfandel Primitivo. All right. I am mortal. I should have taken this out a little bit longer, but you get the idea because it's still going to taste great. So what we're going to do, it smells so good. Hey, a little bit of char isn't such a bad thing. Some chefs actually even kind of promote it, like, oh, our toast is really black and burnt, but that's the way it's supposed to be. I don't buy into that. However, so let's get this going here. What I like about doing it this way too is it allows you, and I think many of you should consider this year, is recommending don't have the buffet going on where everyone's touching everything and you're all hovering around. That if you have the ability, go ahead and plate it up like a restaurant dish. So you can look at what other sides you might have going on with this. A mashed sweet potato, some pureed butternut squash, a mashed potato. Make your traditional gravy so you don't alienate somebody. Plus it'll be nice with this. But get the plate together and you can then slice your bird very nicely so no one's fighting at the table with a knife trying to carve up the bird, which usually ends up looking more like a massacre. So this allows you to really get some creativity going on your plate. So, and I am going to do this next Thursday for the group we're having in. And I'm going to plate it up in the kitchen. It's going to be run to the table like a restaurant. And we got that.
Oh man, my imagination is just going crazy with the smells.
Oh yeah. And here's our maple cider coarse grain mustard. That is my Thanksgiving for 2020. Again, make your dishes, side dishes ahead, your potatoes, whatever your favorite things, the green beans with the Campbell's mushroom sauce in there, or soup. I think the only time they sell that is in bulk is at this time, Thanksgiving and Christmas. I think no one else uses for anything other than making green beans with it. So cheers, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully I didn't mess up anything too badly other than overcooking my stuffing a little bit. But however, I can use the excuse that I was paying attention to this thing. But cheers, everyone. And open question and answer right now. Hopefully some people have some. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And I hope you get the chance to make this just like this on Thanksgiving and share it with your friends and family. And more than anything, let's all be safe this year. Stay safe, stay happy, drink well, eat well. Make sure the couch is primed and you can call shotgun on the couch. One of the greatest things is that tryptophan nap afterwards. A little bourbon and wine doesn't hurt that effort, but anyhow, thanks everybody. Been a lot of fun doing this.
Thank you. Can you all, Kirsten, can you pan back to the plate? And then you can turn on your cameras, folks. We have some time for some Q&A with Chef.
Technology. Okay, everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Kirsten, get back here. So my daughter, Kirsten, is quite the superstar. She grew up in the lab and test kitchen, literally weighing stuff on the gram scale. Her and her 10-year-old, 12-year-old kids acted as focus groups when we were doing stuff. So she followed in my footsteps, but wisely not in the restaurant business. She went on the food science R&D side. She got her degree, food science, from Cornell. Immediately went to work for Unilever Frozen Innovation Team. She then ended up working went to Ben & Jerry's. We grew up literally a mile from the plant. So Kirsten cut her teeth on ice cream pretty early. But we also were doing R&D support for Ben & Jerry's in our lab and test kitchen. So Kirsten was making early batches of Ben & Jerry's. She ended up going to Ben & Jerry's as the principal food scientist and flavor guru for 9 years, responsible for pretty much all the Ben & Jerry's new flavors over the course of that time. She then moved to London, England, to Unilever, brought her there to their frozen global R&D center in London, or north of London, to develop Ben & Jerry's non-dairy vegan ice cream, which she did single-handedly. I think it did $65 million in the first 12 months at retail. So we've been talking for quite a while about starting our own business, and we did 3 years ago. Started on Thanksgiving. This is our 3rd anniversary since we started. Kirsten left Ben & Jerry's, moved to Cleveland, Ohio, with her great husband, Carl. And we have developed Doozy Pots, which is made with hemp oil, hemp protein, and oat flour. And this is unbelievable. We're going to be producing full-time. We've been doing small hand batch production. I've been called the senior intern and chief scooper. I think we estimate I've done 20,000 scoops. The handmade pints are now moving to production. In the end of the first week of December, I guess now, we'll be running our first batch of 50,000 pints. It'll be in all of the Sprouts supermarkets starting in January, February. We're going to blow up. You're going to see it nationally everywhere. You can say you saw her here first while she was still relatively poor and working with me. But anyhow, there's Doozy Pots. That's my pimp ride there. So questions?
Let's see. We had a question earlier. asking what your favorite kitchen tool is.
It's funny, I was asked that in a food arts magazine, and I said Jose. Jose was a guy Salvadorian guy who worked with me literally as a dishwasher starting in the bakery, spoke no English at all, ended up working with me for a very long time. He was just a machine, and he was my best kitchen tool. But oddly enough, like I say, a good knife is key. You have to have a good knife that you're comfortable with. But these things are your hands, extension. You can do amazing things with tongs, you know, hot plates coming out of the broiler in. It's an extension of your arm. Really good cast iron pan, a knife, and a pair of tongs. Put me on a deserted island. I'll take care of myself for as long as I can find food.
I think we also had a question about what to do with turkey leftovers. I'm trying to see who had asked that question. It's like in the back of my head, but I can't remember who the question was. If that was you, please turn on your camera and unmute, and you can ask directly as well.
Well, I can start.
Go for it.
I did a PBS special several years ago on Thanksgiving, and specifically what to do with Thanksgiving leftovers. And obviously a great sandwich. They call it the Pilgrim. Good bread. I like nice, like sourdough bread. Use the stuffing as part of the dish. Slice the turkey. Cold gravy. You keep your gravy, use it like a spread. Cold gravy, a little bit of cranberry. I like to make a cranberry orange relish, a little bit of cranberry. And then that's it. Maybe some mayonnaise. Other than that, that's your turkey sandwich. What I really do like doing is doing a breakfast thing with it, where I make a turkey hash with potatoes, poached egg, some gravy or some hollandaise, and the rest is history.
Okay, I'm working on unmuting participants. Charles, did that work for you? There you go.
Hey, greetings from Colorado.
Hey, Charlie.
Hey, man, I think you need to bring all that over to here next week. It looks incredible.
Well, yeah, I mean, hopefully I'm out in Denver in 2-3 weeks from now, but we can throw a similar dinner together.
Awesome. Hey, what about Thanksgiving dessert? Do you have any favorites or tips on that?
I personally make a tarte tatin. That's my favorite dessert ever, an apple or pear tarte tatin. But growing up, we had the apples, and my mother was the absolute. She was the total expert on anything you could possibly do with an apple. My mother did it. Her pie to this day is the best apple pie I've ever had. I don't even try replicating it. So I make my version with a tarte tatin. I like a pumpkin pie. It's got to be. I like doing a brulee. I've done a couple versions with it. A little bit with a spin on it, not expected by some people, but I'll use a little chili powder in it and give it like chipotle powder. Tiny little bit, just a little bit of spice to it, and a little bit of smokiness. And then I put brown sugar on it with a torch and I brulee it. Then, of course, good homemade whipped cream with a little bourbon in it. Then, this year, this is going on. Kirsten's making an apple cake, and she's going to bring over the 5 different flavors, and we'll have doozy pots on the table for sure.
We'll open up the floor for more questions, and while people are working to unmute, I did get a couple of questions about the chef coat and apron behind me and the lab coat I'm sporting. Those are new RCA logoed swag that you can go buy on the Culinology website, and they're made by New Chef. So go check them out. There are login directions so that you get to the RCA logoed clothing that's up there. So come join the fashion parade here. And don't forget, there's also a Culinology Under Quarantine cookbook collaboration where research chefs all submitted their recipes for that book. And that is also available for sale on Amazon. So go look for that. All of my family and friends that I don't get to see, which is everyone, is going to get a cookbook from me. So, please join us in this as we continue to find some really creative ways to fundraise and continue keeping the RCA moving forward. Chef Steve, thank you so much for kicking off this cooking series. And there are going to be monthly cooking sessions. So you've set a really high bar, Chef Steve.
Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully I know everyone here is a professional food industry person. So hopefully I was able to add some kind of new tricks or information or little tips and nuggets. But, you're a tough crowd. It was a tough crowd. I had to make sure every recipe was exactly going to work the way it was printed. And I'm confident that they did. Hopefully anyone who was cooking along can attest to that. But it really has been a fun thing to do. And back to where we started on this is everyone, we need to get the RCA on stable ground. We need to hit 2021 ready for the next 25. So money talks, BS walks, anything we can do. I know it's tough to go to the pocket right now, and donation land is coming up. It's a lot of people have been behind on hours and pay, et cetera, et cetera. But you're working with some great companies. Anytime that there's an opportunity for them to support the RCA from a corporate perspective, we love that. And back to when I was president, I was really a proponent of that the RCA needed to get into a different market of supporting the restaurants and restaurant chefs. And now more than ever, with what's going on with COVID and all the changes and regulatory changes or mandates for restaurants, this is the time when these people need a friend who understands the science behind the food. A lot of these restaurants are looking to actually have their products co-packed, so they're not doing it in the kitchens. But we have an opportunity to build our base and membership by opening up to encouraging some of these chefs who may not have heard of the RCA, but can understand that it's a great resource very quickly to help them navigate how food science affects their daily life in a regular restaurant kitchen. On that note, everybody, again, have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Hope you enjoyed this, and hopefully we can be seeing each other at a conference in person sooner than later. Nothing like being able to shake a hand, give a hug, and share a drink. So, bon appetit. We'll catch you later. Thanks, everybody.
Great job, Chef.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chef.